Hey, what's going on, everybody? So, Dr. Nelson might be joining a little later, but I think we're just going to go ahead and get started here. So I guess me and Abu can introduce ourselves. I'm Michael Stevens. I've been in the lab, I guess 6 months now. And I will be starting my master's program in the fall. I'm originally from Colorado, and yeah, and me and my wife are expecting in November, so we're pretty excited about that. But yeah, that's me. So Abu, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Abhishek Amalaraj. I'm doing my master's right now. I've been in the lab for about a bit over 8 months. And yeah, I'm from India. And yeah, I'm not expecting anything. So, yep.
All right. Yeah, so I'll kick us off here. We were thinking of just going over some of the concepts, and then we have a little demo that we can go through. But of course, if you have questions at any point throughout, please stop us and we'll go over those. But first off, let me open this up. Can everybody see my screen?
Not yet. It says you're sharing. Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
There. Okay.
Now I can see it.
Perfect. All right. Let's see. So I'll just jump to the technical concepts. I'm assuming most of you have at least kind of skimmed through the learning module. So we'll go through the concepts, but if something doesn't make sense or you just have a question or you want to correct me on something, please feel free. So Git, first off, does anybody who's gone through this, can somebody explain what Git is, just briefly? Did anybody go through the learning module?
Like a version control for code?
Basically? Yeah, exactly. Version control system. And there's, I mean, yeah, that's basically it. And just to kind of give you a, I don't know, a visual representation of some of the commands that you do with Git. So basically, like, who was that? Was that Alma who said that?
Yeah.
So like Alma said, you basically, it's just version control. So it keeps track of the changes that you make. And your files or code is stored in something called a repository. So with that as kind of a background, we'll just give you a brief overview of what you do, how you use it. There's a lot of commands that, I should back up and say that Git is a software that has different commands just like any other software package. And so some of the basic commands, we'll just kind of run through a hypothetical scenario. So if we create a repository on our local machine, and we make changes, say we add a file and put some code in that file, we're in our working directory, and we need to use the add command to put it into a staging area. And Abu, or I think Rohit is on here as well. You guys can correct me here, but I believe the staging area basically just updates the index on your repository. And so when you add files to that staging area, you're just kind of updating your repository. And then the commit command commits those changes. And so once you've added files, you've made all those changes, you do add, commit, and then your local repository is updated.
Just a couple things. So the first thing was, I'm sorry to jump back a little bit, but we mentioned Git as a version control system. What I'd like to do is maybe like go around and just discuss amongst ourselves is, first of all, what is a version control system? Why would you need one? Why would you ever want to use one? And is Git the only version control system? Just some questions like that. So I guess like my first question is like, what is a version control system? And this is for people who are learning this module, so we can just make sure that we are all understanding the same thing.
Yeah, does anybody know? Does somebody want to explain that?
I can do it. A version control system is like a way to track changes in files or in systems or pretty much in anything. There's also a version control system for software like Windows that you can see different versions. So pretty much it's a way to log or to track changes that happen. And Git is the most popular one, at least for coding, because it allows you to do different branches, and it has like this idea of the tree view that it allows you to do branches, to duplicate, to replace, to move the heads, and these are all Git terms, but it's really popular because it's so flexible. And if for some reason, I don't know, your server or your computer or anything goes down, you have this backup that other people have and they can work. Another possibility is also for like version control is really good to teamwork, because if you're working in your file and you have it saved in your computer, but if someone else wants to work in that file, like before you couldn't do it in a way. But with Git allows you to put several people to work in the same file and to be able to resolve conflicts or to contribute to a same project in different ways with different teams really easily.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Daniel. I think another question that Rohit asked was, so Daniel kind of answered this, but there are other alternatives to Git. It's not the only version control system. It's just the most popular one. Was there something else that you wanted to go over, Rohit?
So one more thing that just I wanted to add kind of is just understanding how Git works. And Daniel kind of pointed this out is basically what Git does is it's kind of a watchdog for all of your files. And anytime a file changes, it records the change. Basically, it sees that, oh, this line used to have this text written on it, but now that text has changed. So, and it does this for all the files in your project, and that's kind of how it keeps track of what is happening. And this kind of brings me to the image that Michael was just going over, is the fact that when you're in your working directory, that's when the Git watcher is kind of looking at your files and making sure that it's tracking all the changes. Then you have a staging area where it's more of like, okay, I like these changes and I'm ready for them to be committed. And before I go forward, like what can someone explain, except Daniel, I guess, what a commit is? What does a commit do? No? Or what would be your understanding of a commit?
I would be to save something. Maybe that's a simplistic idea, but to save changes, but not to commit, not to like fully send them out there? Maybe I don't know then.
No, that's definitely in the right direction. So a commit is basically like, Annelise said, it's just saving changes. So it's taking a snapshot and basically saying, okay, all the changes that I've made, I like this, and I want to keep a record of these changes, that these changes have been made. Until this point, any change that you make is only local to your files, to your computer, and no one else can really see those changes. But if you do want to share those changes, so let's say you made an edit to a file and it now works, and you wanted it to share it with other developers who are working on the same project, or you wanted it to show it to someone, at that point, you would take all those changes and do a git commit, where the changes from your staging area will be moved to your local repositories. So now, in your local file system on your computer, your Git is very happy. It has all the changes. It has created a snapshot, a commit at that point in time, and said, okay, these are the changes that the user has made. However, that's still sitting on your local machine. And kind of Annelise kind of pointed it to that. It's like, it's not out there yet, and you can do that. And that's where the other two commands, the push and the pull, come in.
I think that's how this, the whole purpose of version control comes into play. When we have the commit and we commit it to the local repo, we can go back a few commits and see what were the changes made in each commit. But if we don't really commit the files to the local repo, we cannot really do that because it's not saved. In other words, so I think that's how version control works in Git.
Yep, that's all I got, Michael. Sorry, you can continue.
Perfect. Yeah. No, thanks. Thanks for that. So once we've committed those changes to our local repository, if, like Rohit was saying, we want to share it to a remote repository where others can access it, something like GitHub, then we would use a git push and a git pull. And again, Git kind of facilitates all of this, making changes, making sure those changes are okay, saving, to borrow Annelise's term, saving those changes, and then prepping them to be shared with other people. So any questions on Git so far?
I actually do have a question. So maybe this is exactly what Abu just said, but I just need to like say it again to make sure like I understand. So if I made a commit and then I wanted to push that forward, and then I went back and I realized like, oh, actually, I didn't want to push that forward, I could go to like a previous commit and push that forward instead, and it would like overwrite it. Is that the right way of thinking of it?
Yeah.
You could go back to previous commits, using the git log,
Okay, thanks.
And going back to what Rohit was talking about, or what Danny was talking about earlier, is that the Git tracks all of your previous versions, so that if you do make a mistake, you can go back and restore that.
Another thing that I want to add, usually like there's different permissions. So for example, usually like all developers have a permission that says like you can only push, but it needs to be reviewed. So it's okay to push, because usually there's like people that they need to prove that, or usually you go through a process of review, like, okay, that makes sense, it won't break, or they will tell you test it out. And then you push, and then you will do something called merge, that you combine those two versions with the big ones. So there's always like a certain control. So it's not like you push it and you make a mistake, you broke it. Usually there's different stuff to protect.
I think that's a good point, and that's something maybe I think we are planning to cover in the advanced GitHub concepts, about pull requests and how how maintainers of a GitHub repository maintain control and make sure that nothing that's pushed can break the actual application. But yeah, we'll go over that in much more detail in the future.
All right. Any other questions before we move on? All right. So then GitHub, could somebody who's familiar with it or has gone through the module give us a quick 2-sentence overview of GitHub? Or why GitHub is useful?
Isn't it just kind of like the platform where you can access all this stuff?
Yeah, it's a platform where you can access Git repositories. So GitHub uses Git. Git is the version control that GitHub runs on, and it uses these Git repositories. And then, like we were talking about earlier, if we want to share these, GitHub is the perfect platform, to use your word, to share and to to share these repositories and not only share them with other people, but collaborate with other people on those repositories. So for an example, if me and Abu, which we'll actually go over this in just a minute, but if me and Abu are working on the same repository, I make some changes, I commit those and push those to a GitHub repository. And Abu also makes some changes and pushes those to the same repository. GitHub is going to use Git to kind of sort out the different changes. If neither of them conflict, then we're good to go, and the repository, we can commit those changes, and the repository can be updated. If there are different conflicts, then we can kind of sort through those and decide what we want to keep. But again, that's kind of basically GitHub is just a way to share Git repositories. Well, any questions on that? Okay. All right, GitHub Desktop. Somebody want to explain this one?
So GitHub Desktop is just is it just a graphical user interface for, I guess, using Git on your local computer?
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's basically it. And so Abu, you can kind of expound on this one. I don't really use desktop that much, but I mean, what is that? Travis, right? What Travis said is basically it.
Yeah, it's just a software or like a graphical user interface that you could download onto your desktop and do the same functions that you would do on a command terminal, but just a bit more easier, because here you don't have to remember all those commands. You can just click on whichever file you want to work on, commit those changes, pull files, and yeah, so it's just an easier approach for you to function and to use Git. And yeah, Rohit could add anything if he wants to about GitHub Desktop. But yeah, I think that's about it.
Oh, I got nothing.
The one thing I would say with desktop that I just thought of, I was talking with Annelise earlier today, and the main advantage that I see with desktop is just that it has this user interface that you can kind of sort through commands and maybe that's easier to visualize, or sort through changes, I should say. And maybe that's easier to visualize, especially if you're working on a project with a lot of different people, and there are a lot of different changes being made. But yeah, so that's the only thing I just kind of thought of here. Okay, and then GitHub Pages is just a way that you can use a repository on GitHub to create a website. You can add different pages, different files on your repository are kind of make up the pages of your website. And the web development learning module will kind of go through developing a web page, but basically, bottom line, GitHub Pages is just a way that you can use a repository to create a website. Any questions or comments on what we've gone over so far? All right, sweet. Okay, so for the remainder of the time, we were just planning to go through a simple little demo of how to use repositories and how to share them. So if you have questions about concepts that we've gone over or how exactly to do something, we can jump back and go over that. But I'll just kind of go forward here. So I'm going to make a new repository, call it demo repo. Is for the GitHub Basics learning module. I'll keep it public, and then I'll leave those as default and create the repository. Now, I want to copy this website here. And then what I'm going to do next is clone this repository that I just made to my local machine using GitHub Desktop. So, hold on, let me try this. Okay, can you guys see the GitHub Desktop cloner repository here? Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. So all I did was copy that website or that link and then put it here, and then I'm going to clone that. So now I have this demo repo repository on my local machine. And right now it doesn't have any files. So what I will do, and you can link with GitHub Desktop, you can link an external editor like PyCharm. I think something we were running into issues earlier with Annelise is that if you have a Windows machine, it doesn't link to PyCharm. So you would either have to use a different IDE. I think Atom was the one that was one of the ones that worked with Windows, or you would just not use GitHub Desktop. So that's just a little aside here. But assuming you have Apple or a Mac, you can use PyCharm. So we'll open this guy up. Again, no files in it. We'll go ahead and create a file. We'll call it file1. And we'll just leave it as a text file. So we'll add, so right there, it just asked me if I wanted to add that using Git, and so I did. So I added this file. So we'll just make here's a page for the demo. Just make a simple change, and then right here in GitHub Desktop, you can see that not only has it added file 1, but it's also shown the addition that I've made to that file. So then I will commit. Here we'll just do create file 1 and text. And this isn't super important right now, but as you are using GitHub more and more, adding a little message with each commit that you do will be really helpful for you to kind of determine which commit you want to go back to, what you've done with each commit, etc. So we will commit these changes to our master. And there are also, maybe Abu or Rohit, you can describe these, but there are also these extra files that I guess come with making a new repository. Do you guys understand what those do or what those are?
So those are not actually from GitHub. GitHub only creates a .git directory in wherever you're creating a GitHub repo, and that usually will not show up. These are .idea files, and IDEA is actually the company that makes PyCharm. So what these are basically settings for your editor. And so they basically get saved in whatever project you're working on. However, there is a way to use a git ignore file to ignore these, and I don't know if that's, we'll go through that at some point. I don't know if that's a part of this lesson right now.
Oh, yeah, no, I didn't even know about that. So,
so it's normally a good idea not to commit these because you don't want your local configuration settings to go to other people. That's one issue. And the second thing is they're honestly like, they're independent to each user. So it's not worth sharing these files.
Gotcha. Cool. All right, so we will not commit those changes. But I have committed the file 1 and the text. And so if we publish this branch to GitHub, now if we come back here to demo repo, it has that file that I just added. And there's the text that I added as well. Now, finally, before we pass it off to Abu, I need to make him a computer.
Maybe when I try to push, you could explain that, if that works.
Sorry, say that again.
Maybe you could try explaining that when I try to push it, of why I would need to be added as a collaborator.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so right now, because the repository is public, anybody can access it, anybody can pull it to their own machine or clone it to their own machine, and anybody can make changes. But if they want, if I want to get Abu's changes that he makes to this repository, if he adds files or if he changes file 1, then I need to make him a contributor. And you do that through the settings tab over here. And then you go manage access. And I think this was in the hands-on exercises in the module, but go Abu 1995, there he is. So now he can make changes to this repository. So I will stop sharing and let you kind of take it away, Abu.
Sure. So now that I got Michael's collaboration invite, I accept it. And there his file is. So Michael, do you want me to make changes and do this end in GitHub desktop or in the command line? Which one did you want me to do on?
Sorry, I'm on mute. Yeah, either way. Does anybody have any questions on GitHub desktop or how it works? We could just go with the command line then, Abu.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, I could just come here and say, if I want to clone it, I just copy this link over here, and then I say, I paste that link, and it clones the file into wherever I want to do it. So this is a folder called class demo, and in that folder is where the repository got downloaded. So this is the file, and I'm making some changes. Then I save it. And now I want to commit those changes. I want to add those changes back to the repository. And so I say, I first check if there are any changes in the files that I downloaded. Oh, I need to be in the thing. Yeah, so it says that file 1 has been modified, means there have been some changes to it. So I add that file. And then I commit it. And give the commit a name. So this way you can actually track your commits, and it's a good practice to have meaningful commit names. Initially, I just named them as 1 or 2 or just random alphabets, which didn't really help. So probably something like first commit. And then now it's gone, like it's committed to the local repository as in the diagram. So it's in the local repo now, but to push it to the remote repository that is here, I will need to do, git push. And so now if I refresh this page, yeah, so that's the first commit. It's right there. Are there any questions as to about what we just went through in this demo? Okay. So yeah, Michael, I think this part is okay with. Do you want me to create a repository and do the same practice in the GitHub desktop and then push it over to you?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, I can do that. So this is the GitHub desktop app, and then once you sign in, you can get to see your different repositories and stuff. So I'm going to create a new repository and give it a name. Yeah, I think that's it. All right, so now I go to the top. So you can see in the list, there's a demo for class. So this is basically the repository that we created. So we can go into that one. So there's nothing that there's just like a README file. So yeah, I can add something to the README file. I change it. And so it says that this is like the most recent changes made. So I commit that. I'm giving a name to the commit. So dated README markdown file. Yeah, so the published repository is basically, probably Rohit could correct me if I'm wrong. It's what puts this repository that was on my local to GitHub, to the repositories online, to the remote ones. And it adds all these files over there. Am I right, Rohit?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going ahead and I'm publishing the repository. And yeah, so far so good. And now probably Michael, you could from your end try getting those files and making changes. So I'll stop sharing on my end.
Am I unmuted now?
Yeah, yes you are.
Okay, so let me find that repository that we just created.
I think it's on private. I'm just making it public. Can you find it? It says demo for class.
Yeah, I just found it. Okay, so again, we're gonna clone this guy, same deal. And we'll clone it here. Do that in that file path. Again, you can specify where you wanna save it on the computer. So I'll clone that guy, and then I can create some files. Maybe. Oh, there we go. And we can actually see the README file that Abu created here. So here I'm gonna, since this is on the same line, what I'm gonna do is try, maybe try editing. I guess I can't edit it. Huh.
Did you accept the collaborator request? But I don't know. That shouldn't really matter on this.
Let me try opening it again.
Yeah, just try creating a new file and just put some random text over there and
Yeah, that's strange. I couldn't edit the README. Okay. So then again, we won't save these .ide idea .idea files, but we will commit this new file. And we'll commit to master. And we'll ignore those. And then we'll push this guy. Oh, I don't have write access.
email the access to you. So.
Oh, right. Okay. Okay, so let's try this guy again. Perfect. And then if we go back to GitHub, that new file shows up right there. So one quick thing here, I'll kind of demonstrate. If we want to make some changes on the same line of code that's existing. So let's say I want to add it is original from my brain. So I added some code here. So again, this shows a change to this line of code. I'll commit it to master. And then once I push it, where am I? It'll add that same stuff. Sometimes you have to kind of go through and see which changes that you want to keep and which ones you want to discard. And again, all of that is through Git that helps you kind of sort through those things.
Right. And once you have pushed it over there, I can share my screen and show how I could receive it from my end on the desktop app. So it says that there's been one commit, which does not exist on my machine. So I can pull it. And it says that there's a new file. So there we go. And it brings that file onto the same folder where I had the README and where I made those changes. So it brings that file over here automatically. So yeah, it's very simple to use once you start to understand it.
So any questions with that? All right. Last thing here, we did add let's see, is it this one? So we did add a bit more to the GitHub Pages tutorial in the learning module. So, and that was added last night. So if you haven't looked at it since last night, just be aware this is different. We've added a couple more steps. And I believe that's pretty self-explanatory. It kind of walks through some steps, how to use GitHub Desktop, and it uses some, we just give you some sample code to paste into your files, and that code helps facilitate making a website. But does anybody who has gone through the GitHub Pages tutorial section have any questions with that? All right.
Does the I went through that tutorial this morning. Does the image you post in, does it have to be a certain format? Because I posted mine in on my website I made, but it hasn't showed up yet. It like shows a little icon, but it's not displaying the image. Does it need to be? I think I used a JPEG, which I think was also used in the example on there, but. Anyways.
I think it would be to do with the path of the file. Like, were you able, like, did you mention the whole path of the file where it specifically exists?
Could you share the link to your GitHub repository? And that way we can take a look and see what happened there.
Yeah, or should I just share I have my webs page I made. Should I just post that in there?
Sure.
Yeah, okay.
That works.
Let's see.
It's the BYU fan page, Tyler?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have.
Yeah, I think there's no path. There's just like a BYU-campus.jpg. Is this like on your repository?
No, it was just on my computer, my local drive. Is that why? Do I need to put it on my repository?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you should.
That was it.
Yeah.
The other thing in your source code is that you have these angle brackets around the name of your picture. When you have image source equals to quotes and then there is an angle bracket, you don't need those angle brackets.
Okay.
Yeah, once
Gotcha.
you remove those and upload the picture, it should work.
Gotcha.
Oh yeah. That's a good point. So here, let me share my screen real quick. So in the tutorial, maybe there's a better way of doing this, but in the tutorial, when I have brackets around name of picture file, I mean, insert the name of the picture file, don't include the brackets. Whereas these brackets outside here, you do need. So if I just do that, is that too confusing, or I don't know.
I think that's good, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, if you could just remove the angle bracket over there, yeah. That's less confusing, yeah. Perfect.
Yeah, I'll make sure that those are removed. So sweet. Any last questions?
I have kind of like a big picture question, and I don't know, maybe you just need to maybe it's different for each project. but just, I don't know, I was thinking about like all the different things we've learned about, like Jupyter notebooks and GitHub, and like I feel like there's a lot of different like platforms to write your code. I was just wondering, like, where, when you're working on a project, where are you normally like working on that code actively? Like, where do you normally build the, like a Tethys app or something like that? Does that make sense? Like, how do all those different platforms work together, I guess?
Well, I can tell you what I do, and then Abu
Okay.
and Rohit, you guys can tell us the correct way
Sure.
to do it. But I use PyCharm to write all of the code that I'm creating or editing. And then most of the time I'll use the command line, but sometimes you can use GitHub Desktop, and you use that to push it to GitHub, any changes that you made. Or if I need to look at some code that Abu has made, then I'll use those to clone it, and then again I'll most likely look through that code on PyCharm, or I'll use just like a text edit application if I'm just doing it real quick. Now Jupyter Notebook, if I'm like actively experimenting, then I'll use Jupyter Notebook, just because it's easy to test it really quick and see the outputs as well. And then if I'm going to use that on a GitHub repository, then I'll copy and paste that code into PyCharm and then push it from there. But that's just how I do it.
Yeah, perfect. I do the same. I just use like a text editor, like how Michael uses PyCharm. I usually use Visual Studio Code, and that's where I edit my software. And to push it to GitHub, it gives access to multiple, like a lot of people working on the same project, and they can push and pull changes. And so that's basically why we have stuff like that. So we can have a lot of people doing the same thing. I don't know much about Jupyter Notebooks, guys. I don't use it a lot, but yeah, is it like a shell running Python commands online? I don't know, maybe Rohit could correct me, but it's not similar to GitHub in some ways. So yeah, so it's just like mocking a shell online. So you just enter in Python commands and it just runs it for you.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, so I don't think that's version control. Yeah.
Just to add to what these guys have said, like I agree. Like as so far we've done what 8 or 9, or I don't know, 6 of these tutorials, and there's a lot of different technologies and tools that you're being given. You might not use all of them at the same time. However, some of them you'll use on a daily basis, even if you're not really well, yeah, some like if not you're like not consciously, but it'll just happen. So like, for example, with GitHub, GitHub is just a tool that you'll use whenever you're building any application. And like Michael pointed out, and Abu also mentioned that most of the time it's your example of, yeah, how do we develop a Tethys app? The first stage of development is local. So you basically run Tethys locally on your machine and you're doing everything on your computer. You don't need to use Jupyter Notebook for that. You can use PyCharm or an IDE or a text editor to edit your code. And this is where there are some tutorials coming ahead, which are about just how HTML, CSS, JavaScript work, how Python scripting works for different types of data sets and different types of applications that you'll build. And yeah, you'll do all of that locally on your system, and that's when you'll start using some of these tools. For example, the command line concepts that we learned, or how to share your code, how to commit your code so you have a record of it, so that if you mess up, you can always go back. And then once the app is ready and works on your local system, or you want to show it to other people, we take it and put it on our servers, and it can be accessed from there. So yeah, and I'm sorry that it was a little bit of a roundabout way of explaining that, but that's kind of how it will work.
Oh yeah, that helps. Thanks.
Hey Rohit.
Yeah.
Are you putting together the GitHub Advanced Learning module?
I'm not sure about that yet. I've asked Dr. Ames and I'm waiting on a reply from him.
Okay.
So I do have some material, like worst scenario, if we don't have some material in the Word doc, which I don't think we'll have it before Tuesday, just because it's already mid-Thursday today. I do plan on just presenting and kind of walking through each of these concepts that we've learned so far, the push, the pull, stage, and then go into some advanced stuff like what is branchings. You talked about merging a little bit, and that will come up on how to resolve conflicts, stuff like that.
Okay. Are you, because we didn't include anything about the command line in the learning module. Are you going to go over that in the?
Yeah, mine will probably be pure command line.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. So if any of you were confused or just overwhelmed by the stuff on the command line, that's okay. It'll be explained more.
Yep.
All right. That's, unless there are any other questions, that's pretty much all we have. So thanks for attending, guys.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you
Thank you.
guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.